Okay, sixth grade, lesson 5-5. This is page 293. And we're talking about rates in unit rates. And there's a difference between the two. And on page 296, the key concept, it tells you the difference between them. And so you're going to need to know this. So a rate compares quantities with unlike units of measures. So here we have a dollar sign. We're talking about money on top, and then a certain number of oranges on the bottom. And so that's your rate. But if they say they want a unit rate, now you're comparing a quantity of one to another quantity. So they use the same one here, and it's $3.50 for 7 oranges, but then they reduce it down to 1 orange, and so that means it's going to be 50 cents each. So remember, probably the most important thing to remember when you're thinking about rate compared to unit rate is when we're talking about a unit rate, one of the quantities will be reduced to 1. All right? One of the quantities would be reduced to 1. And in this example, they reduced it to 1 orange. Because if you think about it, if 7 oranges cost $3.50, that works out to be each orange being 50 cents. So unit rate, one of the quantities is going to be reduced to 1. And then a rate would just compare the two quantities. All right? So, example 1, they talk about that. It says a rate is a special type of ratio that compares the quantities with unlike units of measure. In that example we just looked at, $3.50 and 7 oranges, that would be a rate. And so they give an example here of a race car, how fast it's traveling, and you can look over that example on your own. And then down below the try it, you guys should have copied that down. It says at the same rate, how long would it take a car to travel 60 kilometers? All right? So it's going to be 10 kilometers times 6, and then 3 minutes times 6, and then you've got 18 here. The car will take 18 minutes to travel 60 kilometers. And to convince me, it says Sal draws a double number line. That's what this is right here. At the right, and it says that he shows, he says it shows at this rate, the race car will travel 35 kilometers in 10.5 minutes. Is he correct? And he is, because for every 5 kilometers, it's going to be 1.5 minutes. And that's what I had written down in here. So the top one is the distance in kilometers, and we go from 0 to 10. Well, half of that is 5. And then at the bottom, it's time. It goes from 0 to 3. Well, half of 3 is 1.5. And so we get, it's a speed of 5 kilometers every 1.5 minutes. All right. Look at example 2. Compare quantities in 2 ways. And it says find the unit rate of pounds per dollar. And remember, when we're talking about a unit rate, one of them will be reduced to 1. And that's exactly what they did here. So here's our unit rate. 15 pounds and $12. So what they did is they just divided each one by 12. 12 divided by 12 was 1, so that's $1. And then 15 pounds divided by 12 is 1.25 pounds. So for $1, you would get 1.25 pounds of apple. And then it says find the unit rate in dollars per pound. So there's a difference. This one is pounds divided by dollars. This one's going to be dollars divided by pounds. So in this first example here, they divided each one by 12, and that reduced the rate of dollars to 1. In this one here, they divided each one by 15, and that reduced it to 1 pound, because remember it was 15 pounds, and they just switched. It was pounds and dollars, and now it's dollars and pounds. And so the unit rate in dollars per pound is 80 cents, because you just do the division there. Now to try it, it says a recipe calls for scrambled eggs. Uses 2 tablespoons of milk for every 3 eggs. What are the 2 unit rates that you could use to represent the recipe? So I just wrote down the rate, 2 to 3, 2 tablespoons. I put 2 T and 3 eggs. All right. So if I reduced this, the tablespoon to 1, okay, I cut that in half. Well, what's half of 3? 1.5 eggs. So that's one way to represent it. It says 2 unit rates, so I could do another way. How about, again, tablespoons, and the bottom one would be eggs. I could write this as 1 egg, and this would be 2/3. So 2/3 of a tablespoon for each egg. So those are the 2 unit rates that we could use. And as you guys do some of these, it'll start to sink in and make a little more sense. Example 3, a unit rate in which the comparison is to 1 unit, and I emphasized that earlier. Remember, unit rate reduces one of them to 1 unit. And so you can look at example 3 there. Let's look at the triad here. It says a canoeing club is travels 78 miles in 10 days. How far could they travel in 5 days if they maintain the same speed? So we need to figure out a unit rate. How would we do that? How would we figure out how far they travel in 1 day? Anybody have any idea? They traveled 78 miles in 3 days. I want to know how far they traveled in 1 day. Mr. Karkit, what do you think? Yeah, I didn't quite hear you, but I think you said it would be 78 divided by 3. And that's going to be the distance traveled in 1 day, which would be a unit rate. Because remember, a unit rate reduces one of them to 1 unit. And in our case, it's reducing 3 days to 1 day. All right? So I want to know what the answer to that is. You guys can figure that one out. All right, page 296. Again, up at the top. I didn't write it out. You guys will need to. You're going to write down a rate compares quantities with unlike units of measure. And the example was $3.50 for 7 oranges. And then a unit rate reduces one of the quantities to 1. And that's what they did here. 1 orange would be 50 cents. So write those down in here. I scratched out number 2. Let's look at number 3 for a moment here. It says a bathroom shower streams 5 gallons of water in 2 minutes. It says find the unit rate for gallons per minute and describe it in words. Well, I'm not so worried about you describing it in words. But I am going to write down, it's going to be gallons divided by minutes. And so that's going to be 5 divided by 2 equals, and then you'll need to figure that out. And that's going to be gallons per minute. And then B, it says find the unit rate for minutes per gallon and describe it in words. So in this case, it's going to be minutes divided by gallons. All right. And so that's what? That's 2 divided by 5 equals so many gallons a minute. Um, 4 and 5, it says find the value of n. I just drew a little arrow for each one of those. 6, 7, 8, and 9, we went over those very briefly. Notice that in 6, they're looking for a rate. Remember, a rate is just comparing two unlike units of measure. So let's go back to number 6 here. It says Janie packaged 108 eggs in 9 cartons. Write this statement as a rate. I have to reduce them to one of them to a 1? I don't, because it's just asking for a rate. And a rate just compares two unlike units of measure. In this case, it was $3.50 to 7 oranges. So I'm just going to write over here for the rate 108 eggs in 9 cartons. And there's number 6 answered for you. All right. Number 7's different. 7, it says Anna Maria read 40 pages in 60 minutes. What is her unit rate in pages per minute? So you're reducing one of them, which is minutes, to 1 minute. And it's a unit rate. So one of the quantities is reduced to 1. And so it would make sense to figure out how much she reads in 1 minute. So you'll need to do that one. Circle 8 and 9. 10 and 11, they're just asking for a rate. They're just asking for a rate, not a unit rate. 12 and 13, it says find the value of x. Well, let's look at 12 for a moment here. So fish, 16 in 2 bowls. So for every 16 fish, looks like there's 2 bowls. But there's not 16 fish. Now there's 48 fish. How many bowls would that be? How would you guys figure that one out? Just to find the value of x. So x equals, well, how many times does 2 go into 16? What is it? Go ahead and say it. 8. Well, what number goes into 48 8 times? That's one way to look at it. Anybody know? 6. 6 times 8 is 48. So x equals 6. That makes sense, doesn't it? 2 goes into 16 8 times. 6 goes into 48 8 times. 6 times 8 is 48. X equals 6. All right. 14, 15, all the way to 19. Circle those. Last page. Page 298. Circle 20. It says, which runner set the fastest pace? So what you'll need to do in this one They give you how many laps in their time. You want to reduce this to a unit rate. In other words, you want to know how far they run in 1 minute. That would be one way to do it. And then see who runs the most laps or the furthest in 1 minute. So 21, those two boxes, 22, 23, 24, scratch out, not worried about that, and 25, multiple choice there. Okay, I'm going to end this video.